Hello, everyone! Welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. It is August the 1st of 2024, as far as you know, because we are recording this episode. Unfortunately, we are not able to effectively go live right now. Recorded only special. We've been hacked. Sorry.
Yeah, we're just getting some weird numbers from OBS. It's dropping a bunch of frames, so not really sure what's going on. Maybe it's something with Twitch. Maybe it's something with OBS. I'm not really sure. All my numbers seemed okay on my end, so we're just gonna go and record this. And I hope that this episode comes out okay. It isn't like consumed by my computer that's having an issue I'm not aware of, and
Oh, God.
this episode is just lost to time.
Like, your entire computer is just melting, but in the corner, it's like, Discord's working fine. It's just cool.
Discord's just chilling, just having a great time. You know, it just knows how to party, really.
That was kind of like just the way that it worked for a little while, and then they were like, "Oh, we have to like have all of these like add-ons and stuff, and take up way more of your computer's working memory and stuff." Oh well.
Yeah, remember the good old classic days, Nick, of Skype and Pamela?
Well, I hesitate to fully 100% agree with what you're saying.
There's a healthy median somewhere between where we are now and Skype with Pamela, basically.
Yes.
That's what you're saying. By the way, we interrupted a discussion between us to start this episode because you have a computer and a laptop next to you, and you said you felt like a hacker.
I just happened to bring my laptop in here before we started recording, and so I record stuff now off the desktop computer because it's just way more reliable in terms of Discord not freezing on it in opportune moments and stuff like that. If something goes wrong on this computer, it's because something's actually wrong, basically, as opposed to this laptop, which is, oh gosh, older than some physical people I know.
Oh my
Quinn.
gosh. Oh my gosh. I do feel like that laptop has been with you for a very long time.
I've had this since I graduated college, so it's been a long time. But yeah, whenever I have two computers around me, it's like I've got two keyboards within arm's reach, and now it gives you this weird sense of power. I can be instead of typing very well on one keyboard, I can type insanely ineffectively on two keyboards.
Yeah. I asked you specifically what you think your Marvel character name would be if you were, a comic book version of the hacker character you're portraying.
Yes. I think that there's got to be there's like different variations you can do for it. One is like you can have something that's like deliberately edgelordy, like you could call yourself like kilohertz, but like it's spelled like killer hertz, and also there's numbers in the place of the vowels.
Oh wow, real edgelordy. Okay.
Yeah. Or there could be something that's like it's just sounds very innocent, and it turns out it's some sort of like weird like pun, or it's a tech term that very few people know about. Like if you call yourself like Keynote, or you could call yourself what is it called? Thumb drive. You call yourself Thumb drive.
You could call yourself Thumb Drive. I want to throw out another idea. Now, this kind of name doesn't really fly anymore, but it's like I guess a special preview to a bonus pod that will eventually be coming out. I am going through very classic X-Men comics right now, and I just had the pleasure of reading a comic book today where the bad guy was just called Computo.
Oh my.
And it was just a robot that mind controlled other robots.
It was the 60s, I guess.
Indeed, I believe we're looking at 1967, 1968. This is, you could just write Computo down on a script, and they were like, Good to
everything.
print. Send it off. Also, one
I
of Caputo's henchman robots. I don't know if they had a name, but they are described in the comic as, quote, the weird-mouthed robot.
There was a thing that I saw where someone did this. It was like on Tumblr or something like that, where someone analyzed how superheroes like power sources have evolved over the years if they're like science and tech related, which is for superheroes, it's like the thing that we're at a point where most people don't know how it works, so you can get away with saying, oh, that thing is why they have superpowers. So it was like nutrition and exercise at a point really early on, and then it became like nuclear radiation and stuff, and then the 80s it was, you know, like hardware, you know, cyborgs,
toxic chemical spills.
right. And the point that they were actually trying to make was like, you know, something that is, you know, different from this is like if it's magic related, because obviously there's no advancements in magic. But it made me think of like, what would like the thing that like is technology that people like don't understand right now? And I was like, AI. It would be AI. It would just be like, you know, there's gonna be, and you know that this is probably already the case. Someone has written, ironically, through their own creative juices and writing ability, has created a superhero that is quote unquote procedurally generated or is like a chatbot or something like that, and that's just their entire gimmick.
Sure. I mean, I think there are robots that are like that, aren't there? Like androids or something like that that crash land, and they're like, "I must learn from you." It's just AI in reality is not like that.
Right.
It just knows how to tell you how to make bad recipes. Basically, it knows how to collate poor information together and regurgitate it back to you.
I guess that's kind of the problem, is that machine learning, which is a better term for it, is the thing that most people don't actually know. It's just that it's been sexied up by calling it AI, and people have a much more a better understanding of what that is supposed to be. So maybe we've kind of like flash sealed people from writing that out. It's like, hey, remember this much cooler thing? Yeah, we've been writing about it for years. So maybe not.
I am looking forward to. I haven't gotten to. Actually, I don't think you can get to it. I think I got canceled. But there was an announcement years ago of like a new X-Men team, or maybe it was a new superhero team, and it was like one of the characters was like safe space and like snowflake, like all that sort of stuff. But the one that always hung on to me, I do not remember the character's name, but I just know that in his description he got hit with, and this is official Marvel words. It was, I believe it's radioactive internet gas or something like that. So
I do remember that. Yes,
he became part internet or something like that, and I'm like, perfect. What a no notes character. Ship it straight out. I only wish he had a dumb name like Internet-O.
Just a complete failure to understand how the technology that we've all grown familiar with over the last several decades works.
Yeah. It was very funny. This was not made in like 2003
no.
when no one knew how the internet worked. This was like a 2016 creation.
And that was a big trend, of course, for a while. A lot of creative spaces like, oh, it's online, you know, it's on the net, or, you know, that kind of thing. There was that stuff like Reboot, that you know, CG animated series from the 90s. There was all the talk of like, oh, the net and stuff in that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, having that kind of confusion in the 2010s it runs a little bit differently.
Yeah, I have distracted us, though, from what we are here to do. We are here to talk about manga in a weekly recaptional format.
Recaptional is the appropriate adjective. You're correct.
Thank you.
Quinn, we've got, I think, 10 series today.
Relatively light.
But there are some things that I'm really looking forward to talking about. Honestly, I feel like I want to spend an uncomfortable amount of time on the color spread for My Hero Academia this week.
Go for it. I have seen this TikToked to death.
This is so good.
Somehow I wound up on I should say somehow. What part about me? The fact that I professionally talk about it for a living. I ended up on My Hero TikTok. And I'm not as afraid of it as I am like One Piece TikTok, where I'm like, I don't want anything
Spoil
spoiled.
everything.
Yes, if someone spoils something in My Hero, I'm usually just like, I will stay quiet about this and see how Nick reacts to this.
Hmm.
But I have seen a bunch of people taking this. I guess this is very similar to a color spread from like the first year of the manga or something like that.
That rings a bell now that you mention it. Yeah, I think the orange and blue and green was like a big thing then. But yeah,
There was one like that, and then I think there's like a pose when they were like first being entered into the academy that this is a little reminiscent of.
Mhm.
If TikTok was an even remotely navigatable platform, I would try to find it right now and send it to you. But just
Yeah.
know, I think this is also an homage to several other things.
There are a few things I want to observe because this is a truly amazing looking
Yes.
two-page spread of just Class A, complete with Shinso, and Aoyama's also there, along with Aizawa and All Might. They're all wearing fancy black and green formal wear, hanging out on a couch and posing for a picture, and a bunch of them are goofing off.
Yep.
Uh, there are a few things that I want to make note of. One is the way that Kaminari is doing something, and I'm not sure what it is, but he's
He
leaning over the
is
couch to ruffle Izuku's hair and thumbs upping someone.
he
Uh,
he he almost looks like he went to go try to like say something like "Hey, Deku," and like pushed his head forward, and then like got really lightheaded and just passed out midway through. Like he is in that motion of just like "Hey, Deku," and then just pass out. You know?
and the other thing is, I really like, for some reason, Sero's face in this, the weird grin that he is making. I don't know what that
Oh
expression
yeah.
says.
He
And
doesn't get
then
a lot of pictures taken. You know,
no,
he is still figuring out his. Look, that's fine. So we all grow at different paces. He's figuring out how his face muscles work, and it's not easy.
And the last thing I want to note is that so all the guys are wearing the same suit essentially in this. It's the same
There's some variations between like
little
jacket,
bit.
vest, and stuff like that, but yeah.
They're all wearing black slacks, black jacket, green shirt, green tie. Uh, the girls have more varied wear. So
Yes.
almost all the girls are wearing dresses, except for Ashido, who is just wearing the guy suit, posing to the side and be like, "Yeah, I look good."
This is definitely someone who is extremely confident in herself. Bravo, because she's killing it. She looks great.
Yeah.
Everyone looks really, really good. I don't know. It looks like it's a happy time for everybody, except for Mineta. I don't know why he was allowed to be front and center, and he's doing like the paint me like one of your French girls pose. Like
Yes.
he is the one that's making this uncomfortable and erotic. It's one of these things you're just like, I don't like that he's there. This is like if I worked at like a Walden Books, I guess I should pick a bookstore that's still in business. Books a Million. This is where I'd put the sticker is right over him. That's like, get this, please.
Just full Mike Wazowski
Yes,
him.
exactly.
And everyone's like, "Thank you for doing that." Yeah. Anyway, this is for the not the end of My Hero Academia, but for the 10-year anniversary, which is just kind of like crazy when you think about that.
It's insane.
And
I also love what's her name's hair? Hagakure?
Agakure,
Yeah.
it
I feel
looks
like
really nice in this.
I feel like we maybe have seen it before, but I just think it looks very beautiful.
I think that it's just her dress. I thought that there was an effect like on her hair being partially transparent, but it's the
It's
cuff
like the
sleeves.
yeah, the sleeves are sheer. Translucent?
Yes, that is also a word for it.
Excellent.
So last time we ended off the chapter with Uraraka remembering the very traumatic encounter that she had with Toga, feeling guilty over it, and then Deku arriving to deal with that whole situation. And we don't start there, Quinn. There was a thing that happened a couple chapters ago where a person who looked very disheveled and not so great emerged from the shadows, and we follow them again in the chapter 429, I am here. And we get this character's backstory, which is that he had this horrible variant of a quirk, and all of his family stopped being nice to him once it emerged, got locked in his basement, and they sewed my mouth shut to keep it from opening wide because he would cry and scream so much. Oh dear.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's one of those like, this is a bad backstory. We don't want to physically show you it, so here's just like 12 depressing text boxes in a row.
Like, well, put it in your imagination. Deal with that.
Yeah, I'm like, you know what? It worked. I empathize with this character.
During all of the fighting, the big war with the villains, they just kind of threw a bunch of food in the basement and then just left them there until a tremendous crash happened during some of the fighting, and he was free from the basement and could go outside. And now he's this incredibly disheveled, mouth stitched shut guy who is wandering around barefoot, thinking to himself, what did I do wrong? Why did I have to be the one who felt sad? I've just been scared this whole time. And why are all these people who out here smiling so much? And then we transition away from this person to Uraraka, who is narrating while crying to herself, I've always loved seeing people smile. That, of course, was her big thing when she revealed her backstory, her reason for becoming a hero. But now she realizes that I got to live and Himiko Toga died, and it's my fault that she's dead. And that's at that point Deku arrives. He touches down after, in a single bound, leaping after her, kind of. And she tries to hide the fact that she's crying, and she's like, "What? How did you know that to be here?" And he says, "I just kind of knew. This is the last place we had our big heart-to-heart talk. That very nice little discussion that they had just ahead of all the fighting that happened." And she's like, "Well, I don't mean that. I mean, like, how did you know? I mean, I told you that I was just going home." And Deku just says, "I had a feeling that you'd be here." And he apologizes for kind of intruding on her wanting to be alone, but he says, look, I want you to share with me what you're going through right now, because you've always been like this since even back during the entrance exam. And we get this, little montage of memories the two of them have had where Deku has seen her always just put other people ahead of herself. Volunteering at the beginning, like, hey, can this boy have some of the points that I earned? Helping him when he was about to trip, all this stuff. And he just says, it's been like this every single time, and you've been saving me every step of the way. You're my hero. Aww. That's cute. So he starts to say, like, he says, so I can't keep taking that strength of yours for granted. Holding a hand can be enough to soothe the pain. And he holds out one of his very, very gnarly, scarred hands and takes one of hers away from her. Very anime crying face. Like the tears that kind of form in a way that tears don't into the giant, massive
They're
jelly
globs.
creature globules.
They're straight up like orbs of liquid coming out instead of just like a teardrop or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And so Uraraka just kind of drops what she's been feeling this whole time. She says, like, it's my fault that Himiko's dead. If only I hadn't gotten stabbed. If only I hadn't been distracted by all those pointless thoughts. She shared blood with her quirk, and it didn't have to end that way. If only I had figured her out sooner, maybe it would have gone differently if we'd met as little kids. And while she is saying this, we get an echo of her thought from earlier when she was trying to help out Deku. When heroes need protecting, who will protect them? Mm-hmm. And Deku just shares a connection with her because he's like, yeah, I've been thinking the same thing about Shigaraki. I was told I couldn't approach the battle the same way as all my others. All for One himself said it. The path I chose was a thorny one, But I know that if we keep going above and beyond, if we keep reaching out, even when nobody's asking, it will make a difference. So that's nice.
Yeah. This is a great speech. This is a great just exchange between these characters. It's wonderful. We'll talk about it, I guess, more as we like wrap up the chapter, because part of this is also tied with the rest. But this was just like a great scene that is gonna hit really hard, I think, when the enemy gets to it.
I don't like how the rest of the class shows up right away.
That is a little bit of a bummer. I do wish these two characters could just share a fucking scene together. But...
Also, this is like our second chapter in a row where like it seemed like something was happening, and then a whole crowd of people showed up at the scene where something was already developing naturally. I was like, and also we're here to help.
Yeah, and also us.
So Class A shows up, and they're like, oh, we all realize this too. There's a brief mention that, because Bakugo's like, hey, how's the Ember doing? How much power did you use up just flying after Araka? And so now they're kind of worried as well, like, hey, how much longer can Deku be a superhero? Of course, if One for All is fading. But he thinks to himself, I completed One for All. The amalgamation of power woven together by courage and heroism, going forward as long as everyone contributes to the weaving. ... Few things happen. There's like some like monuments set up for some of like all the people who made a big difference in the battle, including Monoma gets his own little bust. That's just this very small little panel. It's like, hey, he gets his big reward.
It does feel like he's doing the Jeb Bush meme, like he's so excited to get his little trophy.
People throw a big farewell party for Aoyama since he's leaving the hero course, and Eri's there. And when Jiro plays her guitar as part of the celebration, Eri starts doing something. Like she little kid dances, I guess we can call it that, jumping up and down and everything. And we get a conversation after that between All Might and Hawks, who are both doing they're so injured right now.
It's strong Kakashi and Might Guy hanging out at the retirement home together energy. Like, damn.
So there's just kind of like a recognition of, hey, maybe we should kind of like change up the way that the Billboard chart works, where, we had just like ranked all the heroes according to popularity and influence and stuff like that. Where essentially Hawk says, like, I feel like we should be giving, props and recognition to heroes in the original sense, not just pro heroes, which is like, yeah, okay, fair enough. Good for you changing the Billboard chart format, I guess. But he also says, like, hey, there's also some good to the way that ranking thing did work, so we're not going to just get rid of it. Okay. Go back to the poor kid who is locked in his basement because he has a scary quirk. He's wandering around, very raggedy looking, barefoot, and blood or something like it starts just oozing out of his fingertips. Very nasty looking. While he thinks, why me? Why did I suffer? And then an old woman comes up to him, just grabs him by the hand, and then just says, hey, you. And it's the same, would you believe it? The same woman who saw Shigaraki years ago and didn't help him.
What a second bite at the apple. What a fucking mulligan you got to take on this one.
And she just thinks to herself, like, sometimes I wonder, whether anyone ever helped that little boy. And I do know that she doesn't know that Shigaraki was that kid. That would really negate, like...
if only I had known, I, with my love, would have stopped Shigaraki from becoming the horrible monster he was today.
No, she just, she thinks about that kid that she saw.
Yeah.
While she is helping this kid... there's a little bit more of the conversation that we hear between Hawks and All Might. as Hawk says, on that day, Izuku Midoriya demonstrated to society that we need to support each other, that we can't just sit back and do nothing. I know that what he did hit home with society, and I bet someday soon that heroes will have time to kill. And as this is happening, the woman, takes the boy's hand and says, "You're going to be fine. Granny's here for you." The boy starts crying because someone's finally helping him
Yeah.
in his life. And Uraraka and Deku happen to be there when this happens. And they see this happen, and they see that there is this very troubled person who gets help from someone before they go down past the point of no return. And the two of them exchange a look, and they just trade a smile with each other. So that's all a very nice little tightly written chapter about the impact that this whole thing has had on people. They Deku and Uraraka did not, in a sense, win those battles that they were fighting to try and save the individual people, but they have potentially saved countless lives by example with their actions, which is a lovely sentiment.
Yeah. I love this chapter a lot. This definitely is sort of I don't want to say thesis chapter of My Hero Academia, but this does seem to be sort of the conclusion Horikoshi has put out there. We've had words about some of Horikoshi's tendencies to be like, the system is wrong, but we can't really change it. There's a little bit here of like, oh, well, let's change this and shift this, but it does ultimately kind of just come down to like, the positive of this story is that everyone will step up to prevent, tragedies from happening, and thus heroes will have it easier. And that's fine. That's good. That's what most superhero stories want. You do that sort of line where you're like, isn't that why we get to go home, to not do this anymore? So that's all very sweet. There's going to be a little bit lacking just because I am just like this. I love Hope Core, Nick. I've talked about this before. Even this is too optimistic for me. That's just like, if everyone just decides to help out a strange child who's bleeding out of their fingers on the street.
If I can change, you can change. We can all change.
There's a little bit of Gal Gadot singing Imagine going on here, which is just like, wouldn't it be great if we all just were like good? And it's like, all right. But I still want to say that I genuinely really enjoy this moment with Uraraka and Deku. I love getting to see her thought process. I honestly forget just because, one, we don't read week to week, and two, she just is in as, sort of ill-frequent amount of chapters as everyone else. But like, I forgot Uraraka even has like she's supposed to have like what, the Kansai kind of accent to her or something like that, where they give her like the accent
right, when she gets really emotionally jarred, it comes out.
Yeah, and I love that scene out here. I love seeing how difficult this is for her and how much she, places on her own weight, and how she feels very isolated in all these thoughts that she has towards a pretty complex character. Like, I don't know. I love it a lot. I like that we got to see something with Uraraka and got to explore her character in this really cool way. I wish we could have done more mini versions of this throughout the story, but I'm happy we got this.
Yep. And guess what? Next chapter's the last one.
Next chapter, Nick.
Jeez.
How do you feel?
How do I cope with this reality, Gwen?
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time, I think, since we started the show where we started something basically from the beginning and saw it have like a full end. I guess, technically, there have been some hero series like that. We're going to ignore those for something good.
This is, I believe, the longest running series that we have seen the start and end of during the course of the podcast. We didn't read it from the very beginning, but I mean, we read it from like chapter 30. I think a little bit earlier than that even.
It was somewhere in the school festival, I think, is where we started reading it week to week.
Yeah, so crazy that. Let's move on to Undead Unluck, though.
Yeah, let's move on to Undead Unluck. This is number 216, Expression. So we open with Tatiana on what I would assume is like a fifth or sixth birthday, something like that. She's like a young
That
kid.
child has 3 teeth.
Yeah, she's got to be a young looking kid. But again, I never know in this series if they were like, and once you learn to get your license next week, you'll be able to go to any of the fashion shows you want.
Yeah, we can't see the whole cake that they've got. There's 4 visible candles
Okay.
on it. So
There you go. Anyway, what's important is that she is at home with her parents. She is a child. It's her birthday. And on the television is the fashion show, the Knock or Nosh or Noosh. I have no idea which language this is even supposed to be in. I
the
think.
Nacho collection.
Yeah, the Nacho collection of clothing, which is most clothing, unfortunately, in the world. Anyway, they're like, hey, this is where all the models are. And however old Tatiana takes one look at this and is like, I'm going to be in that when I get older. And as she's walking this runway, she's doing her first little walk down the catwalk. She's thinking, hey, mom and dad, about to make my dream come true. So
I like how we're supposed to be emphasizing, like, oh, she was so little when she wanted to do that. And then you get to the actual Tatiana, and it's like, oh my God, she's still so little.
she's so tiny, and she refers to them as mommy and daddy. This is where I'm like, what age are you?
Pick this girl up, put her in my pocket.
Yeah. So, she's all excited. She's doing the catwalk. And Sean turns to Jakar and is like, hey, we're going to keep guard, but you have a separate order, right? You handle that. And it's the weird mystery phrasing that doesn't make sense. For an explanation, we get 2 pages later. We immediately go into a flashback of Fuko explaining that Tatiana's Untouchable is probably going to activate when she does the 5th and final dress, and once she reaches the exact middle point of the runway. At that point,
I like how they're like, we know some of the details here, so we're going to just analyze what would narratively be the most inconvenient and assume it happens there.
Yeah, there is like a subconscious brilliance to the way Undead Unluck is like written, because any contrivance can be really chalked up to the fact that God's kind of an asshole, just likes like wit essentially and irony in your life. So she's like, hey, everyone's going to need to take your place at that point. We can't fuck this up, because if anything goes wrong, it'll cause a panic and the show will get canceled. And this show is Tatiana's dream. It's the last show she's ever going to get to do. So we're going to prevent her tragedy and make the show a success. And Chikara, I want you to take the best photo of Tatiana you can. So this is, in a way, very similar to Void's tragedy from like a year ago. That was also like,
Right.
hey, we basically want to act like nothing has changed, because after this encounter is done, you don't get to do this anymore. You can't do it anymore. So that's what they're going for here, but with the little added detail that Chikara is going to take a picture of her, and we're combining characters and their interests together. Because Fuko says, I have a feeling that Tatiana will come to treasure that photo. So please make it happen. Yeah. And we see that Chikara has been taking multiple photos throughout the night. Tatiana has done, 4 dresses so far, and we get to see her pose in them. And I do like that her expressions actually like different in the different dresses. Like, it does feel like there was some work put into yes, she has this look. This is how she's going to portray it, whatever. I don't quite understand the one dress, which is just like jean shorts and a denim vest of some kind. It's very Harley Quinn.
Yeah, or like schoolgirl or something along those lines. It definitely, even with the variation among the other outfits, stands out as the most different. And it sort of also feels like maybe there was an understanding of, this is kind of the least interesting one, because it's kind of just crammed in there compared to all the others.
Yeah,
it's the least out there feeling.
Now, granted, this is probably ignorance. I have never been blessed enough to ever go to like a high profile fashion show, so maybe there is in there just like one random ass, like, here comes Tiffany. She's wearing chino shorts from Target and a
There's
Chipotle t-shirt she found.
Fashion shows are also, like an exhibition of art.
Yes.
So there are, there are times where runway models will model something that is just really weirdly out there. So yeah, I'm sure that someone as an avant-garde kind of thing done something that is bizarrely casual looking in appearance.
Sure. And I'm not saying this as though this is a criticism of this. I'm not saying her being like, why isn't the fashion show more realistic or explained? This is just
why isn't the fashion show in this series where the girl is going to explode everything in a 5-meter radius around her not more realistic according to my standards of knowing nothing about fashion shows?
According to my grand history of zero. Yeah. Anyways, she sees Chikara's taking these photos, and he's even like standing on Sean's shoulders to get like different, angles and poses. So, she's like very cool. But she cuts to the back. It's the last dress, and she is screaming, "Tighter, tighter! What's the point of this dress if it doesn't shrink my waist?" And Julia, who is at this point just been signed into seamstress duty, I guess.
What is happening here?
She's like, if we tighten this dress anymore, it'll crack your ribs. And Fuko's like, want me to do it? And Tatiana's like, yeah, absolutely. Julia's like, no, please, I'm telling you, it won't work. And there's just a shot of Fuko doing this. Nick, I told you before, there's a shot of Tatiana staring down at fucking Fuko, who's just got a big grin, and she's saying like, I'm gonna get you back later, and Fuko's like, okay. And there's a line that says they were friends once before, very special ones, I bet. These two
were roommates.
These two have a very defined relationship. And look, I don't even necessarily want to say it's 100% sexual, but these are not platonic vibes that they are giving off right now. These two have something going on between them, and I don't know where it came from.
Yeah, Julia is definitely giving off, especially in her wording here, is like, they seem like really good friends.
Julia, shy, innocent girl, has never experienced anything like this, but she's just sitting off to the side like, what good friends I hope they are. The next shot might as well be them making out on the floor. And Julia's like, what good buddies they are.
This is what happened when Julia's became Julia. She lost any and all sense of non-heteronormative relationships.
Well, remember, Julia existed at a time... Well, Juez existed at a time before gender was even a thing. Yeah. So for her, she's like, look, I have no idea what any of you really are doing, but you seem to really appreciate it. So I'm happy for you. Fuko says, hey, I want to talk to Tatiana for a bit. Can we have the room? Julia leads everyone else away, even though they're like, she's about to go on stage. She really shouldn't. And Julia's like, nope, she's fine. Tatiana immediately is like, what? Did you see something out there? Is someone suspicious there? Just let you know I'm going on no matter what you say. But Fuko gets on her knees and it's
again.
Look. As I said, before it was very much a top-bottom relationship, and these moments are not making that, accusation stick any less,
Quinn, Tatiana is wearing a white dress, and Fuko's wearing a black suit, getting down on her knees and to do a very important promise with her. What's strange about this?
Yeah, I wish she pulled out a ring at this point. So she's like, look, I wanted to tell you that we're going to make sure your show is a success and you can put all of your faith in us. We're going to make this happen for you. And Tatiana's just like, I don't understand what you're talking about. And Fuko's like, I can't really explain it. You're just going to have it happen and then you'll understand. You'll believe me at that point. And just know that no matter what, we are going to handle everything. Trust us. And Tatiana, understandably, is like, that's so much more suspicious than if you had said nothing. I realize your company isn't really real. I don't really get it. how do you understand these things? But then again, I think I kind of like that about you. I kind of just enjoy that, you know, I forget the exact wording she uses here. What is it? I'm literally one to talk. I just hired you as my bodyguard just because something clicked with me, is how she phrases it. She's just like, just one of those magic moments. And then she's like, and also, it's because you like me. Out of all the staff here, you like me the most. And Fuko says, yeah, I adore you.
And then they do a pinky promise. All right. This
is the gayest chapter.
The only way that this could be more typically, but they're all straight guys of Undead Unluck, is if the two did not previously have paths that indicated that they're going to have heterosexual partners.
Yes.
Like
there's a whole energy there, but that's for the fan fiction writers to work with, and you got a lot. This chapter gave you so much material.
Yeah, including a little bit of lore, which is that word bubbles can physically attack people. I do like the bit where Fuko's face gets squished by some of Tatiana's comments.
Yes, very good point. So yes, she gives a pinky promise, says, hey, we are going to protect you, and it's time for the final dress. Everybody in Union is getting ready. They're like, all right, this is what it's all about. We have one shot at this. If we mess it up, everyone here is toast. We can't screw this up. Chikara's tying his hair back. There's a countdown as Tatiana gets to the exact center of the stage, goes down to one, steps in it. Boom, there's a sound effect of like ripping. Fuko says now, and all of a sudden smoke just fills everywhere. And we see Tatiana, whose untouchable is activated, just kind of going like, what's happening? Why is there smoke? What happened to all my clothes? Like, what's going on, basically? And we see Gina and Billy, they're using Unchanged to kind of keep everything in one place. Chikara is up in front of everything doing Unmove. And there is like a 1.5 page spread that is supposed to show all this, but it just has everyone's like power labels over everything. So it's actually very difficult to tell. There's like a giant ball of smoke in the middle of this frame.
I like the idea of it where it's like, Untouchable is emerging and then the others are getting on top of it and suppressing it from bursting out towards everyone. It's a neat idea. But yeah, it is just very large blocky text covering up the entire image.
Yeah, I like the idea. I like the attempt. But it didn't work 100% in practice. But Fuko is talking into the smoke. I don't know if this is supposed to be like inside of like an ear intercom or if she's just like raw dog yelling us into the stadium. She's just saying, hey, Tatiana, can you hear us? Believe in us. Union is going to negate your tragedy.
Yep.
There we go.
Yeah, we'll see how things unfold from here. This is a nice setup for the end of the chapter, and there is some interesting interactions that happen in this, but it is also just kind of throws you off a little bit with some of it.
Yeah. I still like it. I think Tatiana comes off cool in it. I like her relationship with Fuko. It has a tone to me. I don't think my brain can escape it. Something happened. I don't know if it was the estrogen or what. Some part of my brain has chemically changed now, and it is impossible to not see those two as a couple, but I'll try to hold back on it. But I did enjoy the chapter. I like their relationship. And I also like that moment of just like female friendship in like a traditionally feminine activity of like tightening like a dress. Like, I don't know. There was just something very refreshing about that.
Yeah. All right, guys. Blue Box. Chapter
Blue Box.
159, Guest of Honor. Chinatsu and the basketball team are practicing, and their coach and manager are kind of just like chatting on the sidelines, analyzing the team's chances, basically. And the coach says, like, hey, Kano's made a recovery from her injury, and everyone's really, really focused because, they're frustrated by the fact that she got injured during the qualifiers. I think they deserve to win the Winter Cup. But as he thinks that we get a shot of, oh gosh, what's her name? Chinatsu's rival. Forgotten
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Black hair. Fuck. Yam. Oh, this is where not having an audience hurts us. Something with a Y. Yama. Yuna.
Yumika?
Yumika sounds about right.
Yumika is it? Yeah.
Okay.
It's just a shot of her in her basketball uniform. So, whoa. Inaka, is it Inaka? Is that her name? Chinatsu's friend comes out and just kind of immediately runs into Ayame and Taiki and just goes, "Oh, it's the boyfriend." It's just like, what, the boyfriend?
Don't you have a better label for me? It's like,
no. And I do like how she's like, "I bet you like being known as the boyfriend." Actually.
Oh yeah. If everyone was like, "Oh, it's Mrs. Scarlett Johansson," I'd be like, "Yeah, fuck yeah!" Like, what do you like? I don't know what to tell you. Maybe not her specifically. She might have bad political views, but imagine someone attractive who you could want to brag about.
Right.
Cookie Monster, for example. I'm not gonna lie. If I could be known as Miss Cookie Monster, I don't care what horrendous things I have to sign myself into, what contracts and NDAs I've signed myself into. Souls on the table. If I could become Miss Cookie Monster, I will accept eternal damnation.
I mean, you gotta admit, Cookie Monster, he goes all in with everything. Yeah. So he would go all in with marriage. So
sure. He would. Yeah. Oh, and our wedding cake would just be 100 billion cookies.
Might have difficulty with the sharing problem, but I'm sure that I'm sure it would work out.
That's an interesting thing, Nick. I know we're in the middle of Blue Box, and you're probably thinking
Blue Box, Blue Muppet. It's fine.
Yeah. You're probably thinking about how warm and comfortable your bed's going to be tonight when we finally get to that. But on that topic of Cookie Monster lore, does the Cookie Monster ever get full?
Oh,
is there a quantifiable? Surely day to day, there's definitely going to be some discussions about who's eating how much, and whatnot. But at our wedding, surely we won't be stopped by not having enough cookies, right?
Right. You go all out and get as many as are necessary.
We're gonna have all the big bucks of PBS behind us.
Also, I think the Cookie Monster might never get full because most of the cookies that he munches on just kind of fly out of his mouth. So
that is true. He actually does seem to very rarely ever actually consume any of the cookies he eats. So that's another
he's more
big
like a
problem.
Wine taster kind of thing.
Oh my gosh, Cookie Monster, the Sommelier is the Saturday Night Live sketch we really need.
Me going to try this
yeah,
grapey juice.
There. If you're ever watching an episode of SNL and there's the Cookie Monster Sommelier sketch followed by a revival of Toonces the cat who could drive a car, then I've taken
very well.
I specifically have taken over Saturday Night Live.
I haven't thought of that in years, and the last time I thought of that sketch was because of you two. So
I love that sketch so much.
He's a cat who can drive, but he doesn't drive very well because. And
it's always the shitty cat puppet they have to transition to when the cat has to react to the fact that it's driven off a cliff yet again.
Oh my god! Okay. Blue Box. They invite Taiki. I've forgotten everyone's name all of a sudden. They invite Taiki to Chinatsu's birthday party. Very nice of them.
Yes.
Ayame is also there, and she's like, I can't believe that you're Chinatsu's boyfriend. Just throw so much shade at him at one go.
Everyone keeps saying it to him, which is very funny because like this is meant to be like the comeback to it, because she gets to say like, oh, maybe like the way we presume stereotypes and stuff like that is just wrong.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it is a valid point. But every character goes in with the same thing, like, wow, really? Can't believe you landed Chinatsu.
Yeah.
Huh.
Just kind of a constant theme. So that's really weird. My window won't stop scrolling up. There it goes. I got it. I fixed it. It was really weird. I would scroll down a little bit and it would just go back up.
Well, Nick, we have to ask the question now.
Mm?
Which spirit of technology did we collectively piss off?
Oh, between the Twitch and the
Yeah.
scroll bar.
What cosmic entity, besides Computo, who we all know is very powerful, which cosmic entity is messing with this podcast?
I've probably messed with all of them, Quinn.
Okay.
You know, the weird things I've put some of my computers through. Anyway.
Oh my god.
It's not like that. Ayame is just thinking like, oh, yeah, Chinatsu's amazing, beautiful, cool, popular and stuff. And you're just like, and she doesn't even have like an adjective for Taiki. It's just the words, heh. So, like, which is somehow way more insulting.
It's great because he's right next to her. Being very like he is as stone-faced as possible. So it really is it's one of those things where I'm like, is there a part of Taiki's character I'm supposed to be missing a little bit of? Because he actually seems like he's a very great fit for Chinatsu. Most of the time, this is the most even-keeled boy ever. Like, his gremlin side only shows up if you challenge him to fucking competitions or something.
It seems to be that way. But yeah, Ayame has the sudden revelation when she considers that in her mind, they're not a good match. And she just says aloud, maybe like school hierarchy and personality types aren't actually important. And Taiki actually listens to that. And as they're walking by, he just says, yeah, all that matters is if you like that person. And Ayame takes this in, considers it, and she says aloud, they say 90% of the ocean still remains a mystery. And Taiki's like, what are you talking about?
It is so hard to see a character's wheels turn in like a static medium like manga. But that shot of Taiki, like, all that matters is if you like the person. Wide eyes. Like, pan away. Far away shot. Random factoid about the ocean.
So what she is essentially saying to herself is, I don't really know. This is a mystery in regards to... And she just flat out says, I don't really know how I feel about Kyo yet.
Exactly.
So he's gave her this thing to consider, but she's like, I still don't even know if I actually like him before she can even consider it right now. Which I think is a good checking in point for us as the audience for that.
I love that we are able to get these little snippets sometimes for these characters. It's nice to see that like their relationships are still developing, even though it doesn't feel like right now Ayame and Kyo are the focus. They're very much like a B-C plot. I like that we get these little check-ins and these little moments of characters interacting and like intersecting. It makes this, this was like a shared box for all of us and not just this was a gymnasium all of us found our significant others in. It's like, there's like wide branching connections of friendship here.
Yeah. By the way, the girl's name is Nagisa. I remembered it and looked it up.
Good.
What
happened, Nick? Did you remember it or did you look it up?
I remembered it, looked it up to confirm it by going Blue Box Nagisa, and it was like, yes, that's her.
Gotcha.
So Nagisa is giving a little speech while everyone's, celebrating the end of the training camp by saying, it's like, hey, it's Chinatsu's birthday, and they got her a cake, and they give her like a banner and stuff. They're like, blow out the candles, hey, do stuff, and then they're like, okay, you can vote now. She's 18.
Get on out there, it's an important one.
So then they're like, speech, and give her the microphone, and she says, well, thanks everyone. I realize I'm kind of like only got 7 months left of being a high schooler. And so now I'm kind of thinking about time and how I've spent my time so far and what it's led me to now I can see that, there was like some benefit to all the time that I put in. I see, that we're getting better, but I also feel sad. But I also believe that time is precious, and because I appreciate my friends who threw this party for me, I'm gonna let loose. And when Chinatsu says I'm gonna let loose, I went, how? How does Chinatsu let loose? Besides going to Taiki and demanding hugs.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only thing I know about her when she loses control of herself.
I was gonna say, like, she's like, I'm about to go absolutely fucking wild as she unwraps one root beer candy, puts it in her mouth, sucks on it for a second, then spits it out, and she's like, I'm sorry you all had to see that.
That's too much sugar, too much sugar.
I went too far. I got caught up in the moment. I hope you all can forgive me.
And I like how immediately after being like, I'm going to really enjoy this party. And also, I'm going to practice my butt off, just following up on like, I'm going to party so hard. And after this, I'm going to train really, really diligently.
Damn. All right. Good for you, girl. I'm so happy for you.
So she says like, yeah, and I'm going to cherish this year for all that it's worth down to the very last minute and the very last second. And I do like how Nagisa in the front was like, and Chinatsu kind of gets prompted, and she's like, let's go to the Winter Cup. Yeah. Aw, yeah, big celebration. Not only is Taiki there, but also like it seems like the entire badminton club was invited to attend as well to make it a nice big celebration at the end of the training camp for the girls. They're presenting her with like presents, like little like banners and pillows and stuff. Yes. Hayato goes, huh, that's your girlfriend? And Taiki's like, why does everyone think this of me?
Why is everyone so mean about this?
There's a very, very nice little aside where Nishida says to Haru, I'm really envious that they get to keep on playing until winter when they're already done. And Haru's like, you just don't want to study for entrance exams.
I relate to both sentiments.
Yeah. There's, just like some little bits of celebration, slicing up the cake and stuff, people hanging out. It looks like karaoke, where Hina gets a bunch of applause, and Hayato goes, she's a good singer. Good, you're learning more about the girl you have a crush on.
Was there...
Haruto, not Hayato, sorry.
Yeah. Was there another... no, I'm thinking of Akane-banashi. I was trying to think if there was like a karaoke chapter previously in this series. Did Akane in that have like a really old style of taste or something like that? Like she played like a song?
She liked all the classics, yes. Yeah. Because she hung out with an old man all the time.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's what I was wondering. Because Chinatsu also strikes me as somebody who would enjoy the classics, but I'm thinking like 40s, 50s classics. Like she like turns on the old styrofoam and like, I love to sing about the June and the birds and the spring. And she's just sitting there just like, yep.
There was mention of karaoke before where like Ayame and Hina and Hina's friend were like miserable over being single or something. So they went to go and do karaoke to have a good time together, I think. But we didn't really get to see that. Gotcha. It was just mentioned as a thing that they were going to do, I think. Taiki goes outside after the party's over, kind of just like, and Chinatsu goes to meet with him, and then she's like, oh, okay, let's go. And they hold hands, and they start walking, and they just, get to have their little private celebration for her as a couple. And Taiki's like, are you sure that you should like be sneaking out? You're kind of like the reason we're having the party in there. And she's like, yeah, but they really were all just saying I should leave. Just everyone on their teams is just like, go have fun together. Just go.
Every third year is basically just like, for the love of God, be a fucking couple together because you won't have this opportunity in like 6 months. Like
6 months, yeah.
Like you really need to take advantage of this while you can.
Yeah. And so, yeah, Chinatsu's like, yeah, they were just asking me to leave. Besides, today's my birthday. And then Taiki's like, happy birthday! And just like a really unfortunate freeze frame of his circle mouth. It looks so weird.
It's kind of cute because he's wished her a happy birthday before this point. But it is very cute that anytime she announces it's my birthday, he's like, "Happy birthday."
She does. She also makes a remark of like, "Hey, every year we've gone to the beach because, like, oh yeah, the previous year they also wound up at the beach on her birthday. Isn't that sweet?" So they get there. And like Chinatsu gets her shoes off, and she's like, "Oh, you've swam here before, right, Taiki?" And he's like, "Yeah, I swam here during the day." And Chinatsu runs out into the water, and they're splashing around a little bit. And Taiki's like, "Okay, I mean, don't get too excited." Just completely submerges. And Taiki gets really scared for a second, and then she's just swimming around like, "Yay!" So, Taiki's like, should you be doing that? And Chinatsu's like, "Oh, I'm fine. I knew we'd be coming here. So underneath my clothes, I'm wearing a swimsuit, and I'm wearing a swimsuit is given the death knell 2-page spread as Taiki stares into the mouth of his destroyer." Oh no! She's showing cleavage!
This is definitely one of those moments where, like, I guess this is a stakes increaser in this series. Like, usually the 2-page spread devoted to, like, oh, Chamberston, the god of souls, has finally shown himself. That pops up. Here it's like, oh no, she's wearing appropriate clothing for the environment.
Behold, Chinatsu has breasts because she is a young woman. Like,
yeah. Look, yeah. I hope Taiki can have a completely fucking normal human reaction to this. It's weird because normally after this series we talk about Chainsaw Man. And in that series it's the opposite, where it's like, I know Denji won't react to this like a normal human being would. Like, these are the only 2 series where I'm wearing the swimsuit could be the 2-page spread finale. And True. It's very wild how the tones of those series are different.
I like how this was a thing that got foreshadowing in a recent chapter too.
Was there?
Because they mentioned, like, because they were hanging out on the beach a couple chapters ago, the girls were like, "Oh, hey, what do you think of all these cuties wearing bikinis?" And Taiki didn't really react, and they're like, "Oh, right, yeah, you'd only be interested if Chinatsu was wearing a swimsuit." And then he was like, he just couldn't imagine it. It just blotted the entire thing out in his mind.
It's right there, Nick. We could see like a third of it. Like,
Chinatsu is like an eldritch horror whose true appearance cannot be fathomed by the minds of man. And so for Taiki to look upon it will cause him to go insane with the revelation.
Taiki his eyes are gonna, they're starting, of course, it's a woman with her eyes, the soul of humanity. And then it's gonna start going lower. And it's gonna get to like the neck part, and then the rest of Chinatsu's body is just missing. Like it's just an endless void he gets sucked into.
Oh boy, yeah, this is a nice little chapter. Just some nice moments in it for the side cast, and then a development that honestly I am interested to see where this goes, because this is an upping of the stakes of closeness and
intimacy. And
it is intimacy. I kind of hesitate to that because there's a much more kind of connotation to that, but it is a closeness and trust that there is from this. And I guess we now kind of have an answer as to what Chinatsu was thinking about in the previous chapter when she saw, like Taiki playing on the beach and being like, oh, that looked like he was having fun. She wanted to go to the beach with her boyfriend and have fun with him. Of course.
Just wanted to have a good time. Don't know why I'm making such a big weird deal about this.
Well, I got something else to make a big deal about, Quinn.
What's that?
It's World Trigger and the 40th part of this away mission test.
Hey! We start off on kind of an interesting note, and we end on an interesting note.
That's true. Those are both true. Yeah. So let's talk about the beginning, talk about the ending, and not talk about the middle, because there feels like so little of any note for so much of it. But we start off with Suicide Squad, And Sua just says, hey, my plan for us tomorrow is that we're just going to chill out on the battle sims. We're not going to waste too much time creating Tryon soldiers. We have to do other stuff and focus on other stuff. Kotori brings up, like, I mean, why take it easy when we're on a winning streak? And Sua's like, because we're on a winning streak. I mean, look, we've gotten some insane wins in the last couple of days, and it's been great. But what does that remind you of? And Osama was like, oh, it's like at the beginning of the original Battle Sims when Mizukami squad and Ninomiya squad were winning big. And so it was like, yeah, and how does that work out for them? It's like, oh, they lost their streaks because they got countered really hard by other people. So Sua says, countering the standout hotshots is the obvious move here. We're second place in the overall ranks, so people are going to be gunning for us, essentially. So instead of really focusing on the battle sims, we're going to do everything else, and we're just going to try and take a general approach, try and come up with some basic strategies which he entrusts to Osamu, and they're going to just like try not to get dragged down by all the massive amounts of homework that they've got to do, essentially. Fair enough.
And I like that they have an explanation that's like, look, most of the people we're competing against are B rank agents, and there is sort of a straightforward bookishness to how a lot of those people work, you know?
Yuzuru comes across very well in the next conversation but among the Ninomiya squad in terms of his analysis of stuff.
Yeah.
Where he's just like, we shouldn't go for like the above and beyond approach to things because everyone's going to just very fastidiously react to their weaknesses from the previous day. So we just need to worry about that. And that's just kind of it.
Yeah. I jumped ahead, I guess, but part of Sua's little speech is also him identifying that he's like, look, unless you're like Wakamura or Ninomiya squad who seem to be able to like predict things, you need to be able to like go. And that really feels like it's more about Hyusei than Wakamura specifically. Ninomiya, that's I think a little bit more up in the air since he has Amatori, but also he himself is like a former A rank agent. Like I think he's just good at that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Wakamura though is not that, so I think he gets help for other people.
There's a conversation among Mizukami squad. I'm basically just going to skip it. They bring up how they're going to try and figure out how Sua's squad strategy works because they haven't really cracked the code. There's a fairly long conversation among Karuma squad, which seems to focus primarily on Yuba basically being like, I'm going to get revenge. I'm going to, prove myself here. And then there is Kitazoe squad, which essentially establishes all these guys suck except Karuma and Somei. That's what we learn here. They're all stupid.
It is a weirdly odd revelation of just like, oh, everyone here's kind of an idiot. Like, to the point where the one dude opens up a book, he's like, how the fuck will I do this? And there's the other guy's like, you could read, can't you? You physically can read, or you're capable of that, right?
I can't figure out these diagrams. Kuruma's like, there's labels and explanations. Just, can you read them?
I love how desperate his face is. You are literate, yes, is already, I think, a sticker on our server. So
that's great. And then we get to the interesting ending of the chapter, where the same very confusing diagrams, Hughes has opened the book and he goes, the fundamentals of Tryon engineering. Everyone looks at him like, wait, you understand this? He's like, it's all rather elementary content. Because he's from an advanced society where this is like clacking two rocks together to make fire to him. So Wakamura is like, so you can handle like the delegated assignments, and he was just like, I mean, if it's an open to book test, yeah, that won't be a problem, sure. And so we're like, oh my god, yes, good, awesome. And Wakamura is like, hey, there's a chance then if we make use of Hughes's knowledge here, then great. He says like, hey, get together with Hosoe and work on those engineering questions, and he was like, yeah, okay. And there is a great little comment where they're like, oh man, is there anything Hughes can't do? I guess he is related to Chief Cronin after all. And Hughes says, indeed, we are definitely related.
A normal thing you would absolutely say when you're related to somebody and not trying to pass yourself off as not being an alien.
But while they're talking about Hughes's knowledge and everything, they're like, man, like everyone in Tamakoma has just like something really special about them. Like Kuga's got all these incredible skills. Amatori's got this huge amount of power. Mikomo has been really coming into his own with those 6 strategies. And Hughes can do everything except the Japanese language. And they're all labeled with like, oh, Chika, power, Yua, skills, Osamu, strats, Hughes, Canada.
It is a great moment. It was almost enough for me to be like, maybe like give World Trigger another shot. Let me jump back on that train. I was like, I forgot that when this series isn't talking about fucking the mechanics of battle simulations, it's usually pretty interesting and funny.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, when they were talking about like, hey, remember how Tamakoma like operated as a unit? I was like, yes.
Yeah,
I remember.
I'm real grandma. Like, come on, grandma, let's get you to bed. Like, I remember when Tamakoma used to do rank wars, and they were all together.
No, okay, grandma. Let's go put on Sim Battle Part 275.
No, all of Tamakoma 2 was in the same room at one time, I swear.
I get older, but they stay the same age.
Ew, what is that the line I'm using?
Because they're illustrated characters is my point.
Sure.
Sorry, that does have implications.
I was
right.
like, isn't that famously a line Matthew McConaughey
I don't know why I said that. Anyway.
In my old age, I've forgotten what context means. I say any little old line, and they're like, "What a sweet little old lady. She has no idea what she's quoting."
She is very certainly on fleek.
Yeah. I'm sitting out. They brought me to this little diner, and I'm like, I wouldn't like to trouble you for eggs and a little cup of water. Clever girl. Clever girl. And they're like, she's quoting old movies again, as though it's a normal part of parlance.
Oh my God, Grandma Quinn! Ever since she turned 773, she's started to think that she's from the South. Like,
we took her on one tour of New Orleans, and she saw Gambit in one episode of the cartoon. Well, now, fucking Cajun Granny is here to tell you all about your little. I have what she be having.
Nobody put on Friends on the Other Side on YouTube. She'll just revert.
We can't expose her to more of it.
Oh my God.
Someone accidentally left a box set of Treme inside of her room. She keeps thinking she knows she's from the culture now.
Oh boy. So anyway, the point is that they're all reflecting on like, wow, all those people at Tamakoma are great, and they're not even just talking about Tamakoma 2. They're also like, yeah, there's Torimaru. They even got a capybara over there.
It's great because we know the context, but like, if someone told me there was a unit that just hung out with a capybara all day, I would be every day knocking on that door and be like, can I please join your club?
You've got a capybara.
I don't have powers, but can I just pet your capybara for a little bit?
So, for whatever reason, Wakamura says out loud, does Tamakoma Branch have some sort of secret weapon that improves its members? And it's like, I feel kind of bad for him that he's just like, do they have like some sort of like feng shui point that allows its members to just get better intrinsically? And he was just like, I don't think so. I don't think that there's anything special that goes on. And also Reiji and Torimaru have kind of like pretty ordinary leadership. He just says, I feel like HQ is actually better off for people because you get better diversity in your sparring partners. So they're like, well, what about like, natural talent then? You just get like naturally talented people. And Hughes breaks it down as just like, Chica's the only like really natural talent among everyone. And he kind of like breaks it down with like head sizes with chibis, which is cute. And hers is like the moon eclipsing everything. And everyone else is mostly standard size, except for Osamu, who's a little bitty guy. But he says the main exceptional thing about the people of Tamakoma is their capability, plain and simple. And for whatever reason, Wakamura hears that, he's like, it's a capability gap? What does that even mean, though? Good question. It's a very vague term.
This is absolutely something that was made up in like an HR meeting. They were like, we need terms. We can't say unskilled. A capability gap is what we're encountering.
So he says, like, okay, well, if it's not the setting, if it's not the natural talent, what's Mikumo got that I don't? And that's the note we end on. And this feels like an interesting thing to have a character who we've gotten a lot of focus on during this because he was unexpectedly made a captain of one of these squads, realizing he is very average, and also that another very average agent has been making a lot of waves recently, and he is not. And he's trying to figure out, why is that?
Yeah, I mean, I really do like it. I want to see what this answer is. Part of me wants it to be a messy answer because Hughes is kind of a bitch. Like he's just like, I don't mean that in an evil way. He's not. I don't think he's the kind of person that's going to spare Wakamura's feelings. So I feel like I'm hoping that we're going to get like a kind of raw answer. That one not only explains like what Wakamura may be missing, but also kind of goes to show what Hughes thinks of Osamu. Like, what are you lacking that he has? And he's probably gonna figure, like, he seems to trust Osamu, so there's something this kid does have that Wakamura doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that Hughes is involved in this is definitely one of the things that makes it even more interesting, as his near outsider status, really.
Yeah. We've talked so much, though. I feel like it's time. We should take a little second, stretch, get a drink of water, have a little break, and then talk about Astro Royale, Chapter 15, How We Met.
Yeah.
You guys,
we actually go and get water, or just?
I mean, we can, Nick. I mean, this episode, it's
I guess it's recorded.
We're off the rails. We can do whatever we want.
I do actually need to get more water.
Yeah, go grab yourself a little water. I'm gonna sit here. I'm gonna be just off screen. You might see smoke. It's unrelated now. I'll just actually continue on for a quick second just to keep the cadence here going. We open. Carry on, Nick. We open in a flashback of young Tarasu, who is talking about the day he left his mom, basically, how his mother wore an all-black kimono with a cherry blossom patterned obi, and she gave me a letter that said, give this to Kongo Yotsugiri, or Yotsurugi, and, it's a letter specifically for them. It's just like, hey, you're going to be joining their faction today. Do not trust anyone. And like the last, sort of lesson his mom gave him was, find out who the new leader is going to be and make them like you. And Tarasu's even like, look, even though I was so young, I knew I would never see my mother again. Like that was just not going to happen. So, we cut a little further into the flashback, and it's Tarasu's first night with the rest of the family, with his new family, as he's been not sold to, but politically delivered to, I guess.
Yes. I'm back. Hello.
Hello, Nick. Did you get water?
I got water, yes.
Hell yeah.
So Tarasu is put into this family, is told, hey, don't trust anyone. Figure out who the next leader of the family is. Make him like you. And I do like how we just have this very blunt introduction of Tarasu to, all the different members of the family, looking at people being like, that's an enemy. That's an enemy. Including, what was his name? The guy with the light, the actual guy with the lighter.
Yeah. Ko, like K-O-U or something like that.
Something along those lines. But then he is approached from behind by Shio, the oldest of the siblings, who says like, hey, I'll protect you. And Terasu looks at him and thinks, instead of just enemy, this is the king of all enemies. As in, he's going to be the leader. I need to actually endear myself to him. And I also like that he is, we don't see just like, oh, the bad siblings we've met so far. He looks at Terasu and is like, this guy's an enemy of mine.
Yeah.
You know, it's nice. So he chooses Shio to be his mentor. It's kind of weird that the head of the family just has him meet all these strangers and immediately be like, "Who do you want to be your mentor?" And that's it. So that was how he was welcomed into the faction that Shio led, the Hawk faction. And so yeah, it's like, oh yeah, why'd you leave the faction? And Tarasu's like, it's not you guys don't get it. You guys don't get what I'm up to. Torizo and Hibaru are coming up the side of the building. Guido sends some of his weird insect things after them, kind of tries to knock them off. But Torizo throws Hibaru up to the roof, and he just flies up onto the roof of the building, and as these insect things are coming after him, and he shouts out to Torizo like, "Hey, cover me!" Because, you know, there's these weird insects coming after him. And we get a flashback to the first time that Hibaru and Terasu actually met. 6 whole months after Terasu had been dropped off to join the Yotsurugi family, Hibaru showed up, and he's this, you know, scuffed up, really dirty kid that Terasu looks like is like, I heard this guy was supposed to be like a spoiled brat. And Hibaru goes to his father and he says, "I made it back from Hokkaido without having any money to get me here, and it took me 6 months, but I walked all the way back." So his father says, like, "Why'd you take so long? Were you taking a bunch of detours again?" And Hibaru says, "Yeah, and I made friends along the way." And his father says, "Good. You were born into the Otsurugi family. You must work 1,000 times harder than others. Cultivate your mind and learn righteousness." And afterwards, immediately after, Hibaru goes to Terasu, who is, you know, the new kid around here, and he's like, "Let's go to the bathhouse." This is how Yakuza men bond, I guess.
This is, where else would you go, Nick? If I know anything from hearing other people play like a dragon, all you do is go to bathhouses, and then some weird gang of like a thing you wouldn't expect to be in a gang just shows up, like, oh, all the ramen makers in town have collectively formed a gang and I have to go kart race with them.
So Hibaru's, you know, like telling Terasu about some of his adventures from when he was, you know, just walking back from Hokkaido. And he's like, "Hey, you're the enemy's kid, right?" And Terasu looks at him. He kind of has this kind of grin, and he's like, "Yeah, and you're the brat who rides on his dad's coattails." But Hibaru just, you know, shrugs it off, and he says, "This is hard on you, isn't it? You know, you've got to live with your enemies." And he says, "You know, you learn a lot by meeting people out on the road. When times are tough, people tend to take it out on each other. And all my siblings have had really rough lives before they got here. So, you know, my dad raised them super strict. Their guards are up. But once you get to know them, they're not that bad. And I hope you get to know me too, because we're brothers now." And he kind of gives him a little, you know, like, grabs his face and goes like, "Yeah," you know, ruffles him up a little bit. And he says, "I'm going to get you to accept me no matter what."
I am very interested in seeing this explored. And part of me is worried we actually won't. But his little speech here, he's like, "Look, all my siblings had really rough lives. I'm telling you, they're not all bad when you get to meet them." All these sorts of things. But like we can even see earlier in the flashback that the second he sees Shio, he's like, "Oh, this is like a super bad." Like, I feel like to make this scene, these two scenes make sense, you actually do have to develop these guys to be sympathetic. And like Ko wasn't a great first example of that.
Right.
So I'm a little nervous how good these characters actually will end up coming across. So consider me tentatively very interested in this.
Yeah. But the main point of all this is that when Hibaru reaches out to Tarasu in this way, it has a very profound, sincere impact on him. Like, see, Tarasu is just kind of staring at him, and tears are silently coming from his eyes by the end of this. So in the present, he says to Guido, who is fighting all of them, "You don't get it. You don't get what it means to be Hibaru. He's totally different from all of you. His light never wavers. That to Hibaru Yotsurugi really is." And as Hibaru goes flying up the building, he comes over the edge. Tarasu unleashes his shield, Yatagarasu, and Hibaru comes up over the edge as the shield appears behind him to block all the insects emerging. He flies up to Guido, and he starts to throw his punch. As Guido goes, protect me, Gizmo! And, which is a great one-line out of context thing, as Hibaru launches a punch at point-blank range. Which is a cool, there's a lot of motion involved in the sequence with, like Hibaru is coming up the building, Tarasu throws his shield at the last minute so that it protects him as the wave's coming up so that Hibaru can launch the attack. It's neat. And it feels like the flashback did do quite a bit. I feel like this is the best Astro Royale has been in a little while in terms of like, hey, a pretty interesting action sequence and some interesting character stuff happened.
Yeah, I mean, excuse me, I agree that it is. This is better than a lot of the stuff we've gotten recently. I'm like excited by a lot of the things in this chapter. I'm intrigued by a couple things. I like that it ends with him doing this big burst, being shielded from behind, and he's about to punch this guy. I wish I kind of hated this guy a little bit more, and I wish we also got to see the punch connect. It's kind of just like a bunch of visual effects by the character shouting out the name of the attack. But I generally...
It's kind of like watching the Mission Yozakura family anime, honestly. I've been watching it with Nicole. She finds it adorable. But... there are action scenes in it that are not good. Because that show's not got a great animation style to it. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess we shall see if the rest of this is going to hold up or if this is just another like moment of like, this guy's talented, but maybe not that talented. We're going to see, I think. But I'm excited to see the next chapter. And just to see where we kind of go. Like, this was a good, I think, end of this action sequence. And, we'll see if, like, the rest of the saga arc, whatever the fuck this is, holds up.
Mm-hmm. Hima-Ten, chapter number 4, shopping! Class ends. So Yoshino bids goodbye to Iemori, and so they're like, oh yeah, goodbye, and they have to like kind of pretend that they're not going to see each other immediately after this. And so he's like, yeah, I kind of wish that she would, like, be nicer to me while I'm working for her, basically. He runs into Kanai, and she mentions like, oh yeah, I'm kind of nervous because I got like work later. Yeah, I got a job recently and stuff. And Iemori's like, oh, we both have jobs. We've got a connection. Stuff's like, all right, well, okay, calm down, boy.
Yeah, chill.
And then she just straight up does something that I did not expect, which is that she just says, hey, so I just saw you with Himari Yoshino in the library yesterday. What was up with that? Just comes out and just says it instead of like, ooh, what's going on here? And they just keep it to themselves like
I think
like every manga does.
Fair. I think we're a little too early to start doing that stuff. And also this doesn't seem like the series is trying to necessarily... I don't know. I feel like eventually we are going to get those moments where she's going to be like, sure, why are you entering Hima-Ten's house or apartment or something along those lines. But as it is right now, this is something that's actually quite honestly easy for him to explain away. So it doesn't feel like it's worth it to hang it as like a cliffhanger.
Yes. So yeah, he does that, and then he tries to like buzz off like, oh yeah, we just like bumped into each other and everything, and I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea about us because she's a celebrity and everything. And Kanai says, I don't think it would be weird if you got her to warm up to you. Just says something that's very complimentary to him, like, hey, you're a charismatic guy that I feel like people get along with well. It's nice.
Yeah.
He gets kind of embarrassed about it, but afterwards, she says like, okay, I gotta go and everything, and then Yamori's like, does that mean that Kanai feels like she could be open with me? All right, calm down. Calm down. Just chill. Just look, I know that this is what being a teenager is just letting those emotions just take over. But anyway, he gets a message from Yoshino to meet at the station, and when he sees her, she's in, kind of her like public disguise outfit. So she's wearing, like a very baggy jacket and a hat and glasses. So no one will recognize her.
Someone, I think it was Jay Flugel in our Discord, was like, I wonder if Quinn's going to make the same Black Widow in Winter Soldier reference she does anytime some character does this. That was a thought that went through my head. It was more along the lines of like, one, why didn't you put your hair back into something? Like, your hair is so prominent and beautiful and like trademark for you. It's like, put it up in a bun, something, girl. What is this?
Hide it under the hat.
And then the second thing was like, did bucket hats come back? Like, when? How? Look, I feel like this makes you stand out so much more.
Looks up at a billboard behind her. There's just a full photo spread of TK from Digimon, the second series.
See, so, everyone's going crazy for bucket hats. It's all the rage.
And she says that the reason that she wanted them to meet at the station instead of at her home is because they're going to go shopping and get actual supplies that, Miyamori needs to actually clean her house properly. So they go and they take a look at the vacuum cleaners, and she's like, wow, there's all sorts here. And she looks at him and is like, don't you know which one's good? And he's like, I've never bought one before. I just use the equipment that's there and clean with it. So yeah, they look over and stuff, and they're like, oh, should we get this? It's like, that's so expensive and stuff. And it's like, well, I mean, you might as well get the best top line product, whatever. And she also says it looks nicer. And he's like, why do you care about that? And she says, are you implying that I do not care about the way that the things look because I live in a pigsty? He's like, no.
I do enjoy her calling him out and then him very quickly being like, I didn't say that. I didn't. No. That's not what I was going for.
So while they're out, and she's like, yeah, I'm going to get that thing and use it. It is expensive, so make sure you actually use it and everything.
Yeah.
But she says, like, what else should we get? And, he says, well, a rice cooker would be great. I bought pre-cooked rice when I cooked for you before. So when she hears that, she's like, you're authentic cooking? Getting that rice cooker.
Yeah, she's like, fuck the vacuum cleaner. Let's get a great rice cooker.
Yeah. And she just, orders it and has it and is going to have it delivered and everything. But Imori's like, if we do that, I'm not going to be able to get it until next week and stuff. But they're both like really excited about the rice cooker, which is very, very cute. Just this little like domestic life, like we get to have, a rice cooker. It's sweet.
Yeah, it's very cute.
And she's really excited because she's like, oh, you like I like my rice slightly firm, okay? And Iamori is like, oh yeah, I do too. And she says, I know, that's what you put in your lunches. And Iamori just kind of has this look on his face of like, oh yeah, we kind of have like shared that sort of intimate detail about my personal life because you stole my food from me.
It is cute though how she talks about this. She's like, I know, that's what you put in your lunches, so I love it so much. It's like, it is kind of cute.
Okay. Then he tells her, like, by the way, can I like saw us in the library? And she freaks out for a second. And he's like, I convinced her that we just bumped into each other. And she's like, good, because everyone's convinced I can cook now and I can't take that lie back. Interesting stakes. But then there is a makeup store that they pass by, and
this is like, so funny. He's like, am I even allowed to be in a makeup store? And she has such a great response, which is like, you can wait outside if you want. Because the answer is obviously, yes, of course you're allowed in the makeup store. You're allowed to be most places if you're not weird about it, basically. But like her reaction, just like, go outside if you want. Like, I know we're not really doing this together the same way we were
Yeah,
before.
I'm stopping here. I don't care if you're with me. This is actually for me. I just invited you with me to be nice.
Yeah.
And she spots a display for her products, and of course, like her face is there because she is also the face of the brand. In addition to everything else she does as the president of it, and she just has this moment where she's just looking at it proudly and is like, "This is my makeup line." And Miyamori is again kind of blown away, like she's in high school and she did this. Like this is kind of crazy.
I'm very curious to see how she accomplished all of this as well. Not like an accusatory, like it's a plot hole. I'm just like, this is like a very interesting thing for her to do, and it's probably the most prominent thing about this series. Like this is the hook essentially to it, is she's like a president. So I'm like, I'm curious, what resources did she have? Like, how did she kind of obtain this makeup line? Like, what got her started? Just very curious.
They hear a couple of girls who are like, "Oh my gosh, it's the Hima Riz section. Let's go and look at the products." And so Yoshino grabs Ianori and they hide, and she just kind of like spies on them, like liking her products. And she just says in the cutest moment ever, when she sees them, she's like, "They're buying it."
Yeah.
It's like, "Aw." Because, it's this thing, of course, where it's like she is super successful at this, but she just sees like a pair of girls buying something and she's really excited for it, and that's very endearing. They leave afterwards, and she's kind of like, gets on his case a little bit, like, if you hadn't been there, I could have actually gone and greeted my fans, but we can't be spotted together, etc., etc. Before they go home, they stop at Stirbax, not Starbucks, Stirbax, legally distinct, to get some coffee, head inside. And Yoshino's like, if we're surrounded by this many people, someone might recognize me. So you buy the drinks. I'm going to powder my nose. And she provides him with her cafe card. And it's like, say, give me a tall hot coffee. And walks off. And Iamori's like, she's really cool and cute. All right, But then it was so weird when I read this because I was reading it on my phone. And he passes by someone who just says aloud to themselves, "The girl at the counter was pretty cute." And I was wondering, like, why the hell did he say that?
Yeah.
And then I turned the page and was like, okay, that's why. A main character appeared and he commented on them, basically. So yeah, Iamori starts to order, and he realizes that Kanai is the one who is working the counter. This is the job that she was referring to before. And oh no, he's at a coffee shop together with Yoshino, and he's got her cafe card.
Yes.
Which
now, like, look, and he's also like broke himself. It's not like he can really pay for things on his own. I guess he's not broke. He just has a bunch of things saved. I generally really want some stuff with Kanai, because if we are going to get into this as like a romance harem, will they, won't they, pick your waifu, whatever sort of series, this girl has to be compelling in some way, because this seems like the most likely love interest for a while. So I am hoping they do something with her in this next chapter to give her more focus. Right now, she is very much just like the nice girl, and I'd like to get a little bit more detail about who she is.
I also wanted to say as the last note that the big ominous note the image we end the chapter on of this cliffhanger is just a shot of the girl's bathroom door, because that's where Yoshino went.
I mean, it is a legit kind of suspenseful thing, because she is going to walk out of that bathroom without any idea that this interaction is happening. So she could easily just walk straight up to a Mori and be like, "Oh, hey, did you get the drinks?" or something like that. And you're like, "Oh shit, now we've been made," essentially.
Yep.
All right, Nick.
All right.
Does Jack Joe die? The chapter.
Ultimate Exorcist Kiyoshi Chapter 6, Nehan and Jackjo. We see a bit of Nehan and Jackjo, who we were introduced to last time, a bit of their life together. Nehan wakes up and Jackjo is acting like there is a great prophecy. He's like, "The time for your awakening is at hand." It's just because his alarm clock went off and Nehan didn't wake up. So yeah, so they had to class, and they're like, oh, maybe we'll see Kiyoshi there. Run into class, being good buddies together, and we get a reminder from Nehan, like, I'm Nehan, this is Jack Joe. He's, I guess, a demon, but he's been my friend since I was a little kid. We just made friends with Kiyoshi, the Exorcist, and he's a good guy. He's not going to exercise Jack Joe, so it's great. And also we're gonna go and we're gonna go and visit my mom in the hospital today. And Jack Joe's really excited about that too. He's like, oh, it's been so long since we've seen her. I can't wait. He's being very sweet. And then some exorcists show up. One of them is Sosuke, the guy that was, declaring himself Kiyoshi's rival before. And there is a guy who he is working under, who is tracked down Jack Joe. Kiyoshi realizes that Neha and Jack Joe were late for class, and he's like, oh, I wanted to talk to the guys about the manga they loaned me yesterday. It's so nice just having a little high school life. It's great. But then he overhears some students saying that they heard Nehan like running around really desperately outside. Kiyoshi realizes something's up, and we cut back over to Nehan. Jack Joe is injured because the Exorcist has been attacking him, getting set to exorcise him. He knocks Jack Joe to the ground. Nehan begs for his life, and the main exorcist says, that's Jack Joe Nilbana, one of the highest ranking members of the 13 Club, the Demon Lords. And one of them is hiding on the surface without attacking any humans. What is he planning? And Nehan is like, he's like, hey, he's not going to hurt anyone. And the exorcist literally grabs his mouth to shut him up. And we get a big introduction to him that he is one of the Knights of Light, the Concordia, the highest rank of exorcist cross-paladin Tsurugi Hijiri. Although he doesn't really have a very cool like panel of him, it's just his face, so it loses a little bit of the impact when this happens.
But Nick, this is the cross-paladin. This is that important rank they talked about before.
True that. Sosuke holds up a gun to Jack Joe's head, and he's like, I know that you're trying to trick that kid, but you're not going to fool us. And Jack Joe's like, I don't remember anything, though. Nehan tackles him out of the way before Sosuke can just execute him. And Tsurugi, you can tell he's a good guy because he just face smashes this innocent child into the street because he's like, I gotta kill this ghost. It's like, all right, what a hero this guy is.
Yeah.
So Tsurugi says to Sosuke that he's basically not being decisive enough. He's like, if you want to be a cross paladin, then you've got to just settle things. And again, Nehan is like grabbing onto him, begging for Jack Joe's life, calls him his best friend. Jack Joe is crying. And Tsurugi is like, well, I guess I'll just have to eliminate you too, because he's such a hero.
He's this good dude, fucking Tsurugi Hijiri. He's just a cool dude.
Yeah. Jack Joe can't take it anymore, and his hand lashes out. He has transformed into seemingly his true demonic appearance. He's covered in fire, got really big horns, growling really demonically. And Sosuke realizes, oh, this is bad. An actual fight's going to happen. And he actually starts, protecting Nehan, picking him up and trying to get him to safety while Tsurugi fights with Jack Joe. And Nehan's like, he's not like that. He's not like that. Tsurugi and Jack Joe go to do a big samurai showdown, throw a punch versus slash a sword maneuver. And then that's when Kiyoshi arrives, gets in the way, uses some of his techniques to block both blows in between them. And he says, sorry, guys, I'm sorry that I was late, but it'll be okay now. So big hero moment time for Kiyoshi. And we'll get to see if he can protect Jack Joe, or if he'll end up having to exercise him after all.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think part of this series, we've, compared it to MASH a lot. It almost seems to have a little bit of the inverse of MASH's issue, where MASH was always really, really funny, but the world around him was kind of generic and boring. Whereas this time, the world around Kiyoshi is actually kind of cool and interesting, but Kiyoshi himself can be kind of boring and uninteresting at times. So I'm waiting to see if the energy will pick up the same way, because all the Jack Joe stuff is cool, but I didn't really care about the big hero moment with Kiyoshi yet.
Yeah, it was legitimately very compelling for these characters that we met last week and seeing their plight because they're very memorable. And Jack Joe's got just a really neat design
And his
with the big
name's
hood and the
Jack
giant
Joe.
grin.
He has two names. Not since my cousin Tom
Yeah,
Paul has someone had two names as one name
ever.
before.
All right, Marriagetoxin.
Yes. Dun 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 dun. That's the Phoenix Wright theme.
Yeah, chapter 96. Haibe was really upset that Kikuno died, so he picked up her corpse and burned her to a skeleton because to make sure she's dead. She ain't coming back, guys. And yeah, he stands over her and says, the most toxic masculinity thing I've heard in a while. You are nothing but a woman, powerless and frail. Despite that, I let you live, and yet this is how you repay me? You've gone and made a mess of everything. You're talking to a skeleton.
He is blaming her as she is dead. He's like, look at what you made me do!
So he demands that Ushio go with him to the bout ground so they can have the final bout. He promises he's going to kill her. And Ushio, she stares at shock at her mother's corpse and then looks at Haibe and goes, bring it on. Because she's awesome. So they head out and Haichi, the head's daughter, starts... She says, like, you haven't even held Haibu's funeral fire right. You haven't even put your son to rest. And Haibe turns and makes this like comically who gives a fuck face and just, who is Haibu? I don't believe I know anyone in the Fire Clan who would let himself be killed by a lonely servant. And walks out. Still buck-ass naked, by the way.
I mean, at a certain point, if you radiate fire that frequently from your body, maybe you are just like, look, I'm just going to save myself some money and just not bother with clothes for a bit. Mm-hmm. It's my house.
Haichi begs Ushio not to go out to the fight because she says, like, the scorching earth that Haibu planted there is still there. But Haibe shuts her up, and there is a horror manga shot.
That straight up is, yeah.
Where he says, silence, woman, because, man, this guy is...
Nick, I don't know if have you gotten it yet? He is not a good dude. He is a bad dude.
So
I am waiting for him to kick a dog on his way to this fight. Like, they're like, how else can
Hold on, is that dog female? It is? Ha!
Smells the dog once. It is punt.
They go out to the fighting grounds. That dragon statue looks a lot like a turd from this distance. I cannot not see that. I'm sorry.
It's impossible for me to see it and not think of the Jackie Chan dragon statue that Shendu is throughout the first season of the series, where he's a statue that you put little trinkets in.
Yep. So Ushio and Haibe face off against each other, and Haibe is, of course, he's just thinking all this stuff that happened, the Fire Clan falling to ruin, Haibu dying, the loss of the love of my life, Kikuno, the love of your life. You
killed
her on as a servant.
You killed her too. Like, what do you?
Even if you didn't kill her, you made sure she was dead. You double tapped the body. And so he's just like, this is all because we let the child of Omen live, and I'm going to correct that. The Fire Clan shall rise again. And he strikes, admittedly, a very cool Street Fighter battle pose with fire coming out of his hands, and starts making sigils with his hands. And he says, the way of the Fire Kado goes beyond merely killing. Flowers, leaves, trunk, roots. It is a comprehensive art form, the culmination of a vast tree of flames. I mean, all you did, though, realistically, is just cast a bunch of fire around yourself, so we don't really get to see if any of that does anything different.
Yeah, it is very fanciful. This is, a great gotcha game, Ultimate or something like that. But you do have to wonder, like, does this actually practically change anything about what you just did, or did you just make a bunch of fire in the shape of shit?
Haichi looks to Kinosaki and Gero and says, like, you guys have got to get away from the village. My father is a walking natural disaster. He's going to burn down everything in sight. No one can stop him. But when they so much as turn the other direction, 6 people block their path, all Fire Clan specialists, and they get ready for battle and are saying, your lives were forfeit the moment you walked into this village. And Gero very calmly looks to Haichi and says, who are these guys? And she says, they're the clan head's personal subjugation squad, the 6 disaster dragons, all as powerful as Haibu. And we get introductions for all of these weird people who start off relatively normal, like Haibei's nephew. He has a goatee. Then there is Haibei's younger brother who just goes...
Yeah, he's drowning. He is currently drowning. I don't know on what, but it is bad. Someone should help him.
Haibei's grandnephew, who is an elementary schooler complete with backpack.
Yeah.
There is a member of the Branch family who is this, like, kind of intoxicated woman who is breathing from a pipe and stuff. And then there's a samurai guy. And then just kind of a weird wussy guy who's just whatever. He's bald. Anyway, they all attack. They all descend on Haibei at once. And Gero beats them all. They're just immediately, they're all on the ground.
In one of those moments, not since they were describing the different beasts. They were like, yes, there's the hippo user and the kangaroo user and all that stuff. You were just like, okay, this is for the bit. I have accepted, as I am being explained about the 6 disaster dragons, was it? Yeah. That these aren't going to be important characters I have to actually memorize.
The beaten off page in a single page, like, amazing. And Haichi is just in awe, and she's like, how they're supposed to be able to rival an army division in power, and he beat them all instantly. Who are you? And finally, Gero just, like, drops the act and is like, I'm Hikaru Gero, a poison user. And she realizes, like, why are you here? Wait, you've got to go and save Ushio-san. And Gero says, you, Haibei, and Kikuno-san as well, have all severely misjudged her strength. We've faced off, seriously tried to kill each other once before, and that's why I know Ushio would never resort to a sneak attack. Because, and as this is happening, Haibei charges towards Ushio. He's unleashing Ultra Lineage Amplified Armageddon, surrounding himself in fire at maximum speed. And then we get a full-page spread of Ushio's fist coming up, surrounded by water, and then another full-page spread of her punching him in the fucking jaw, uppercutting his ass, and following through.
The 2-page spread of the uppercut, or the 2 subsequent page uppercut, is fucking phenomenal. Like, this is the kind of shit that I eat up with a spoon. Anytime you, like, really sit back, you, like, sit me down and make me, like, watch the scene in motion. Like, that happened a couple times in Meiruko-chan, where you'd see, like, a character, like, do something, and then the page would turn, and they're still doing it, but now there's, like, a monster behind him. It's, like, that same sort of feeling.
And, yeah, we get the follow-through on the 2-page spread that follows as Haibei blood explodes out of his mouth and nose. His eyes have gone white, and Gero finishes the thought of, she would never resort to a sneak attack, because she doesn't have to. I don't know if that's just the end of this, like the climax of this arc. I would be 100% fine with it if it is.
I would be okay for the most part. I would be a little disappointed because it didn't. This is one of those arcs where, like, oh, at no point did I ever feel any level of suspense for our heroes. But as an arc where Ushio gets to punch a shitty misogynist in the fucking face, it's awesome for that. Like, 10 out of 10. Great feeling, So, depending on ultimately if there's more left, I guess we'll determine how I feel. But this is a dope chapter, and Ushio's cool as shit.
I get the feeling it's not. Because there is one major thread that we haven't really seen come back to. and that is Haibu's brother,
That's
the guy
true.
with the bandages, who was spying on Garo and Anushio before all of this. Seemed to be up to something, and we have not seen a hint of what he was up to in any way,
Very
shape,
true.
or form since.
That's a great
So
point.
I think that there is one last thing that needs to happen, one last reveal that's going to happen. But even so, what a satisfying chapter this was.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
Yep. Good shit. And let's move on to new Exorcist.
Good shit. Good shit, Quinn.
I was trying to like keep the same enthusiasm, and then I opened it up and I was like, well, maybe. And then I remembered I have no idea what happened in this chapter. I followed this one stone sober and could not. I was like, I just do not know what this action is.
So anyway, this is chapter 60, Shiroha's results. We get God, I keep on forgetting her actual name because she has all these fake names and stuff. Because she's referred to as Tomesode, and it's like that's not her real name though. God damn it. I can't remember her actual name.
Fucking
Yeah. Gakuro's sister.
Shitotsu?
Chitotsu, that's right, yeah.
Still have it.
Good
Quinn.
job, Quinn.
You still have it.
So Shitatsu has taken the girl that she rescued, her girlfriend, to Nue's room to protect her. Because also she has to like head there to protect it. When they go inside, she's like, this isn't the usual space because it's just a large empty room that has the ritual blade at the far edge. And there's some weird visuals that start happening at this point because Shitatsu is, calling out for Nue and stuff, and she comes across her, and Nue is lying face down on the ground. And when we get a close-up of her face down on the ground, it's like, she looks weird. She looks like she's not actually on the ground. There's just like a shot of her from behind, and the floor was just kind of drawn in behind her. There's something very off-putting about it. But she realized, like, oh shit, she's out cold. What's happening? What about Shiroha? What's going on? We cut to Shiroha's fight. Her new weapon lets her launch bullets that summon the skeletal hands that she was using with Kyokatsu before, which is pretty insane. She's got a spear machine gun that shoots bullets that cast spectral decaying hands.
It is wild power. It is dope as shit, but it is wild to explain.
So her opponent is, using her lasers and stuff to keep her at bay. There is a neat thing that happens where she realizes that Shitatsu is also using the hands to move herself because her legs were injured previously, so she shouldn't be able to move. So she just gets herself around by having these spectral hands grab her and pull her out of the way of attacks and stuff. It's neat. It's an actual use of their hands.
Yes.
So it's cool.
It's neat. It is a little tough to read sometimes, which is one of the issues I had with this. There are several times I'm like, I'm just trying to like process what happened, and I'm not able to.
There's not a lot of good translation of this is what is happening at certain points, but when it does sink in what is happening, it's with Shiroha's abilities. I do think like that's neat. That's
yes.
Cool. There's again more of the like chess battle that they're having where it's like, oh, this structure is getting decayed and this one is resisting it and the shield gets summoned and stuff and so forth. And Shiroha is able to trick her by making it think that one of the units is not eroded, and then one of the hands reaches out and grabs her. And Shiroha's like, oh shit, I didn't even feel that happen. Shiroha uses the vortex to get in behind her really quick and launches an attack, and it breaks the barrier. What? Wait a minute. This
successful.
Isn't right.
Yeah. Wait, hold on.
It worked.
Somewhere there's like a room of exorcists who are just like the energy has shifted. Someone did the thing and it worked. It would be like if a shuriken hit in Naruto. Like no one would know what to do. Everyone would be like, no, this is a trick or something. This motherfucker couldn't have gotten hit by 8,000 shurikens I threw.
10 throws a bunch of stuff and then somebody's body falls over and she's like gotta go to like she's got to go to like soldier counseling. It's like, I killed someone. Like, what the hell? I just threw some shuriken.
I normally spend my days doing a normal safe job of just throwing 10,000 bladed weapons at my enemy. You know, pure distractionary stuff. Nothing that's ever actually supposed to do something.
The greatest waste of all of Konoha's military resources.
Konoha is built on an iron mine, and they're just trying to like justify the mining at this point. They're like, oh, we can make a shit ton of shurikens, I guess. Yeah, but what are we gonna do with a shit ton of shurikens? Like, just throw it at people. It's gotta hit one day, right?
There's a very weird moment that I have because we again have a flashback when it looks like a member of this, humanoid level 4 demons council looks like they're going to be defeated. We have a flashback to them before the mission where everyone talks about them in an as you know type of way to explain their backstory, where they're like, oh, Yoriko, that's her name. I'm sure it has been brought up, but did not memorize it. So Yoriko is being sent to handle things at the school. We know that now. And they're like, oh, wow, that seems like an interesting choice. Are you going to be able to fight? Because you're going to have to fight kids. You're a middle school teacher. You love kids, and they love you. Won't this be kind of a lot for you?
Yeah, it kind of does sound like it's a lot. Like, send her anywhere else, maybe. Like,
yeah.
Don't do this.
So one of the other ones says, remember what you said earlier? I've retired from combat. At this point, training you brilliant folks is easier and more fun. Wasn't that it? It's like, all right, let's all just, okay.
Back up a second. Keep giving me character development, I guess. But, let me respond to some things.
That's right, guys. Keep on telling me things about myself. Go on. Keep it going.
Oh, my God. That's not a fake thing, though. That's a real thing. One of my greatest joys in life was be like, oh, I wish I just had a dinner with all my friends and they spent the whole meal reassuring me about myself. They were like, Quinn, you're so funny and witty. So witty. Oh, and you're adorable. Like, oh, that kill me then. I don't even want to live afterwards. Well, I guess I would. I'd be full of so much joy for my compatriots.
Yoriko says, you are very funny, by the way. I really appreciate your company. So
thank you.
I feel like I would have been doing a crime if I hadn't
I really wasn't trying to angle. Like, I really wasn't trying to be like, I'm just going to throw out there that I love compliments. But thank you. That does genuinely mean a lot to me. Thank you.
Yoriko says, hey, don't worry about me. I know where I draw the line. The mission comes first. I'll stick to my code as far as I can and no further. So she has a code that she won't attack kids, but she will attack kids.
Look, we all are just trying to survive.
And again, it's like one of the people that she has apparently been training says, when you can't stick to it, make fast decisions. Be sure you know your own strength. And it's a quote, which means that it's something that Yoriko has taught her. Yeah. And it's like, again, like just telling her things about herself. It's so weird. And then the guy says, well, so you're going to be able to kill your opponent even if you're fighting kids, right? And she says, I won't have to. Not if they're kids. And then we get the only part of this flashback, which is actually her reflecting on herself, which is her saying, kids are fun to watch. Their minds are in constant flux and they grow fast. They also don't have the strength to hurt me. It's like being careful not to step on ants by the roadside. I need to be considerate and watch over them with care. So, and it's a shot of her as like a school gym coach, which is like, it's interesting.
It's an interesting viewpoint of people. I can't tell if it's supposed to give you any sense of like humanity or something like that, because it is like kind of a human thing to be like, oh, I like to educate kids athletically because they grow so fast and their talent is in that point of like flourishing. They make such huge improvements. Like, I can see some of that. But then she's like, and they're like ants to me. They are mere puppets in my finger. I guess it's just her saying, because I don't know, what the fuck do they call them? Hollows? Not hollows, but they're hollows.
Yeah.
Whatever they are.
She's a
Spirit, yeah. It's her like saying like, I guess I could just crush them if I really wanted to. But I don't Like, does she have a fucking address? Like, does she just live somewhere and get mail most of the time? Like, I don't understand what these things are exactly. Like, do they fuck off to Hueco Mundo when they aren't, like, actively doing things?
There's been this definite thing of establishing that the spirits do pass themselves off as human, at least when it conveniences them. But this is definitely an implication that they have like entire identities that they stick to, which is interesting. And I wish that we didn't get it in just these little snippets to establish it. It's this is such a weird thing to throw out there of like, oh, she disguised herself as like a gym coach for kids, and a lot of it is baked into her personality and just fit it into 2.5 pages basically.
Yeah, I really wish we had gotten a sequence of chapters before this where we got to see these characters interacting with each other and get to know who they are there. Like, I know there's scenes where they've talked, but it's always just been in that generic villain group way of just like, guess it's time to get the plan started. Yeah, it's time to rumble. You don't get to know anything. But like this girl and the guy before this, both I think would have been really increased by having like 5 or so chapters where we like got to like intermittently see what their personalities were like or something like that. Like, it'd be nice to have known this detail before I was 3/4 of the way through the fight.
I feel like what would have been interesting is, and this is not the only way you could do this, but this would be a way to do this that I feel like would have more of an impact with this specific development, which would be you show a chapter of a bunch of characters you've never seen before. Each of them lasts a page, maybe two of them doing like normal human things. And then at the end of the chapter, you see all the characters you've seen throughout that story all gathering together, and it's revealed that they're all level 4 spirits.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
then you get a glimpse of them, and then you have this understanding of like,
Yeah.
oh shit, there's all these people in the human world who are actually terrifying spirits that are an organization that works together.
That
It
would
would
be a great way to do it. You'd be able to like set things up, you create the stakes, you're able to like establish who these people are before, so like there'd be personal connections between these characters. Yeah.
and there'd also be a twist within the chapter
Yes.
itself when you learn that.
And I think the arc would be a little more cohesive too. You know,
Yes.
like as it is right now, it is kind of just like, I don't know, like they walked into a room and they found out there were blades in there and they decided to kill the people who had the blades, and that's what's happening now.
At this moment in the present, Yoriko is thinking to herself, the girls that stepped up to me, they snapped a bit, and I tried to push them away gently so that they wouldn't lose any limbs. But she has showed tremendous growth in this battle. So she says, kids do grow fast, and you worked real hard. You've made yourself a fine enemy. And the hands touch her, and she doesn't erode. They don't erode her weapon when they land on it, as she basically just gets rid of all the tiny crystals and just summons a massive fuck off gun instead of all the little ones, shoots it, and yeah, Shirua can't do that. She just gets blasted through the wall. She's like fine. She's just kind of unconscious though, and Yoriko's like, "Oh, perfect. This is exactly where I wanted to end up," because she is right in front of the door leading into Nue's area. But then a weird thing happens where Shiro's body fades away and then is replaced by the sword as the door behind it opens. So an ominous thing is happening here, presumably as a way for them to deal with Yoriko, it looks like. But I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen, but that's okay. I wish this were a more ominous shot, though. Honestly,
I think and maybe this is something that I'm just gonna have to do at some point, since it seems like the series is sticking around. I think I'm just gonna have to go back and reread some of these old pieces where some of these characters were like explained, because I'm like, I think this is that crow guy, like that's the implication, but I don't remember how he worked, and I don't remember what the detail was. I don't know. I just feel like there's pieces of this series I'm missing that if we're gonna keep reading it, I need to like remind myself how this actually fucking functions.
if we're going to be the preeminent new Exorcist recap podcast.
God, are we? We can't. There has to be, like, look, This series will.
Well, yes, obviously we are. Everyone else talks about that series, New Age Exorcist. We talk about
That's true. We are the #1 new Sexorcist podcast. Now, the question though is, the series doesn't have an anime. Do you think we are considered? There's got to be people who talk about it on like a weekly basis. Like I know there's like Reddit forums and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But do you think we're like, there's not a lot of us actively producing content about new Sexorcists? We have to be some of the only few, right?
We got to put that in all our hashtags now so that people find the podcast.
Anytime I'm talking about anything, I'm going to talk about my favorite X-Men soon. I'm going to hashtag it New Sexorcist, just so I get the New Sexorcist crowds in, and the new sexies, as we like to call them.
The new sexies,
yeah.
God.
All right, Nick, let's wrap this up with Akane-banashi.
It's chapter 120. Walk the path. Akane is
be like a cool song. Like,
yeah,
you remember Cruising World, Nick, from the arcades?
I do.
And Nick again thinking about how warm and comfortable his bed is going to be. You remember Cruising World and Cruising USA?
Yes. Checkpoint.
Yeah, I don't have like really a comment to bring up about them, except that I sing the theme song to Cruising World a lot, and I expect other people to recognize it when I do so. And I am disappointed that no one ever
no one ever paid attention to that sound.
No one else is ever on the same Cruising World vibe that I'm on.
Everyone else was too busy trying to figure out if it was better to run in auto or manual transmission on the game.
Meanwhile, I'm sitting there like, you've got the moves, you've got the power to cruise the world. That's how the song goes. If you listen to it right now, that's how the song goes.
And I am doing that right now.
I'm experiencing it again in real life. Nick's like, yeah, I remember the game. I don't know why. The only thing you remember is the fucking theme song.
All I remember is that it starts with the bikini girl swinging a flag so that you start, and then if you hit the gas pedal twice, your car would pop a wheelie, and if you did that behind someone, you would flip over them, which was the most satisfying thing in the world.
That fucking rules.
It did rule. Anyway, so Akane has been cleaning up the Shigama house, and she thinks to herself, I have been visiting this house like every day since I was a little kid, but now I'm going to be a fully fledged Rakugoka. When she steps out of the house after cleaning it, she like bows to it.
Yeah.
And she thinks, I want to express my gratitude with my opening act today. This is the first time a master's ever asked me to perform at his show. It's thanks to him I've come this far, and I want to be able to say to him, I can make it on my own now. But I don't know what I should perform. Oh dear, honey, it's today.
The day. I understand there is meant to be a dramatic suspense, but I am like, it seems extremely inappropriate that you have not thought of which story you were going to do up till the morning of the performance.
God. She comes to Shigama, and he's like putting on his his fashionable old man clothes, his suspenders and his straw hat and stuff. So he's like, hey, let's get ready. But Akane's like, I mean, the show's not for like another 8 hours though. And he says, no, spend some time with me. And they go to Shibuya, and there's all these strangers of all different walks who just come to Shigama, and they're like, I'm going to go see the show tonight. Yeah, we're going to be there. And it's like, a family, an old woman, a massive nerd, a goth gang leader.
I was gonna say this seems to be what I guess is like their Sting cosplayer or something. Like this is a very distinct aesthetic that I really love that they show all these different walks of life.
Oh yeah,
are all about Shigama's shit. Yeah.
And there's all these people who are like, hey, we're going. It's like, couples and stuff. And Akane's like, how does everyone know you here? And she even points out some of them don't really seem like they'd be into Rakugo. And he says, well, today's event's one I've been running for years and years now. And the other aspect is our shared interests. And Akane flashes back to a really early chapter where Shigamo is explaining things in terms of manga. Like he was using the wrong vocabulary, but he was making a point that made sense metaphorically. And Akane's like, he's got a lot of weird, disparate interests.
I love how this characterizes him and even this town. Like this shows this like very interested like fringe culture that seems to like subsist and support one another in like a way that seems genuinely very like powerful. They say later this is like an annual event he does, and like anytime he does it, everybody's so excited, and it's like that's genuinely extremely sweet and makes me like Master Shigema a lot. Like it adds a lot of richness and culture to someone that his age are like, yeah, this does, inform a lot to his character.
Absolutely, that he keeps his finger on the pulse of this entire culture and every single aspect of it. It makes him very likable.
Yeah.
And he takes Akane into a record store, like a proper record store. And he's like, "Hey, yeah, go, let's do some crate diving." And she goes through stuff, comes across a Coltrane album, and she remembers that Rokuro had mentioned that like that was the style that he was going for today. And Shigema sees that, and he's like, "Hey, I'll buy that for you." And she says, "I don't even actually know what this is," but Shigema says, "Well, that's even better. In the world of art, you never know what will fulfill the soul. You can't go wrong by trying out new things." That's really neat.
Yeah.
And then there's a very great joke afterwards because the guy's like, "Well, in that case, I'm going to buy everything from here to here." And he's like, "No."
Yeah, she becomes a fucking Garfield comic for a second. She's like, I guess I'll help myself to one piece. And she just grabs the whole jar. Yeah. Oh, if it were lasagna, that pan would have been eaten.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we get, a little collage of them going about. There's a cute shot of them in like getting like trying on like sports jerseys. And then they come across Tingle cosplayers.
I was gonna say, I'm like, Tingle from the Legend of Zelda franchise.
Yeah, it's weird, and so they're having like some drinks later, and Akane says like, "Wow, I was expecting to have like a very particular experience in Shibuya, but there's way more to it than that, isn't there?" And Shigema says, "Yeah, we're on the streets with the people. The atmosphere of those Rakugo stories still flows through Shibuya today. This is like a color of the town you're experiencing, and you can't understand it unless you walk through it." And Akane realizes, this is why you would take me out to practice so often. I didn't understand, but when you would take me around Tokyo, that's Edo. You were helping me to imagine the world of our stories by showing me all these sights and sounds. And there's a very adorable shot of them at, like a summer festival, and with Akane as a little girl with a bunch of treats and stuff following Shigema around. And Shigema just says, "Was I? That's an interesting theory." And then Akane gets this idea of like, "Oh, and when we practiced at the karaoke box," and Shigema's just like, "Oh, I just wanted to sing." So he's great.
Yeah.
It's time for the actual event. So Akane's getting ready, and Gakumon is there, the judge from the big selection round that Akane participated in. And he introduces himself as art critic Gakumon Saito. And so she's like, "Oh my god, are you going to judge Master Shigema's performance?" And he's like, "No, I'm here to learn from your master." And he says like, "Yeah, I'm here to learn from the culture that he has fostered." And Akane's like, "Oh yeah, I guess this has been going on a long time." He says, No. In the 1970s, Shibuya was at the center of a widespread culture of consumerism and advertisement. It was here the cutting edge and underground met. Independent theater, Shibuya-kei music, girly clubs, art house cinemas, and this culture continues to evolve here today. Back then, the classic arts were completely out of place in the neighborhood of the young and trendy, but he took on the challenge with nothing but Rakugo by his side. It was a reckless attempt that never should have worked, but Master Shigema made them choose Rakugo. For nearly 30 years, this event is now so long running and beloved, it is a summer landmark in Shibuya. He made the public take notice. His art took root in the culture. It's more difficult than you can imagine to walk the path your school does. And Akane finally realizes this entire time he's been showing me the way, making sure I wouldn't get lost when I started walking on my own, showing me the sights I should seek. And she thinks that she's been wanting to express her gratitude to him. And she just kind of, she ties her head up and she thinks, I just can't keep up. But she says to Gakumon, hey, thanks for talking with me. You helped me make up my mind. I'm going to put on a show to kick this evening off with a performance worthy of the Shigama School.
Yeah.
This chapter rules.
This chapter rules. This is one of those moments where I'm like, ooh, can I say my character of the week is Shibuya, the city? Because it's kind of a character in this chapter. Look, this chapter just makes Shigama cool. It fucking rules. As I've gotten older, I've gotten more and more interested in that kind of like local art community like vibe and just like that intersection of like homegrown sort of talent stuff. So I did like seeing how they focus on it. How he's just like, look, you gotta stay in touch with your community. You gotta, see me walk around. You can see all walks of life are going to my show. And it's, it shows a lot that he's like trying to culture Akane throughout her whole life.
Yeah.
It's a very important thing.
I love the very fatherly relationship he is shown to have with Akane. That note of like, he's been showing me the path to walk so that I could find my own path. And it's like, that's so nice. That's so sweet. And yeah, this was just great to add some more context to their relationship, which I think it's really just been kind of a background informing element for so much of the series to this point. And it was nice to have a reminder of how influential he was early on in her time learning Rakugo. That's it for manga this week. There is no One Piece. We will have a different batch of series next week. And let's, wrap things up. What was your favorites this week?
I think this is a tough one. I want to give special credit to My Hero, Marriagetoxin, and Akane-banashi, who I think were the three strongest this week. And I'm just trying to decide how I'm divvying this up.
Okay. I can tell you that My Hero Academia is my chapter of the week. It's a weird experience, but I like the way that it wraps things up and ties in this idea that, hey, there was a difference that was made here. And I think that it's a great callback to just say like, hey, the old lady who didn't help out Shigaraki, she helped out this potential disaster that happens here. And Uraraka and Deku get to be there to see that their efforts did make a difference after they both had the despair of, was it all worth it? And it turns out, yes, it was. It's just a nice message.
Yeah, I think I am going to end up going with Akane-banashi as my chapter of the week, because I really, really liked everything we got about Shigama and how he's been guiding Akane. I think all of that worked really, really well. And then I'm going to give my character of the week to Uraraka from My Hero Academia, who, honestly, I could have given chapter of the week as well, but I was more excited just to get a good detailed moment focused on Uraraka, even more than I feel like it's like the general thesis of My Hero was the rest of it. And I'm like, that's cool. That's awesome. But I really, really got to appreciate feeling like I got to know Uraraka again for a moment.
Yeah. And that very emotional confrontation she has with Deku, where she's just crying and letting out everything that she's been holding inside about all her regrets. Yeah. I will basically just kind of flip you and say that Shigama is my MVP. So for all the reasons that we've been over there, just how cool he seems, and not just what he does in this chapter, but just a reminder of his influence and his past accomplishments. Just if this is a chapter that goes, Master Shigama is really cool, and I went out at the end of it, man, Master Shigama is really cool. So well done.
Yeah. I agree. The audience, by the way, has My Hero Academia as the chapter of the week, and then Ushio from Marriagetoxin as the character of the week. Very, very strong option there as well.
Gotta respect the punch. Absolutely. Yes. And that's going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap, everybody. Normally, we record and stream this show on twitch.tv/RLOT. The broadcasting was not working out so much today, so this is a recorded episode, but we should hopefully be back to Twitch next week, and we will hopefully also be back to our regular Wednesday time. We tend to record the show Wednesday evenings at about 7:30 or 8 Eastern time. We have our past episodes at weeklymangarecap.podbean.com if you want to check out all of our archives there. There's also video versions at youtube.com/weeklymangarecap where you can check out the opening sequence by Malajax Tillits and Winsdale Cheddar at the beginning of each episode. There are also occasional title cards made by Steve Man, whose artwork you can check out all across the internet by just searching for Steve Man Art. Audio feeds go through iTunes and Spotify and all those kind of places if you have a particular place you like listening to your podcast through. And we also have a patreon.com/weeklymangarecap, where we have bonus content if you help us out financially supporting the show. We also want to thank Ninja X3i, who maintains a Google Doc that you can find through the Discord server, which will be linked everywhere that this gets posted up. That Google Doc helps us to keep track of the MVP and favorite series voting, rewards that we go over at the end of the year when we do our big annual recap, and also just recommended series. If you have a series that you want us to talk about, then leave a recommendation there, add a vote to an existing recommendation, and also you can check out all the previous stuff that we've covered in the history of the show.
Yes. All right, that's gonna do it. So thank you for listening to this odder episode of the recap where we had no audience, no little jokes with Ninja, didn't have Eerie Gray to throw in a Nina at us, although she didn't appear in this chapter. So actually that would have been annoying. So maybe that's for the best. But thank you all for listening. We will be live again hopefully next week. And I love you. I don't know what else to say. Goodbye.
I don't. I establish clear barriers with the audience.
Okay. I don't.
Appreciate you all.
I'll be very unhealthy. Okay. My social security number is 7.
No, good.